to say a good afternoon to all for joining AJT's second last webinar series, Navigating Our Future, Embracing the New Wellness Lifestyle. Now, that doesn't mean that we are going away. We have a new series coming up. So this will be basically our second last, with thanking our major sponsor, Swan & McCarran. So welcome back our participants that have joined us in our AJT series, and a warm welcome to our new participants. Today, I would like to say that it's a very interesting topic that we have, global wellness trends and property investment. With today, we have brought a total of 6 speakers here to share with you the insight of global wellness trends and how one could basically explore the possibility of taking additional measures, taking more securities, and looking into property investments. I would like to welcome our speaker for today. We have Chris from Swan & McCarran. We have David from Third 500. We have Dr. Pansak, who is our guru in Thailand. Pansak is our medical director who is in Bamurat. Dr. Pansak, welcome. We have Tan Wan from Grand Copton. We have Clarence from Swan. We have Wade Pibun from Real Estate. And we have myself, Anthony, who will be your moderator for today and the next coming few webinars. So before we start further, I'd just like to bring a little showcase to you what AJT does. As we all know, AJT basically is a concept consultants and innovators in basically providing a full turnkey service for projects which is involved in healthcare, wellness, and hospitality. And we provide business marketing. Now, this webinar series is a joint collaboration between AJT and Architect Swan & McCarran, Singapore. Many of you will recognize Swan & McCarran Architects in Singapore. They have been established since 1892. The firm is one of the oldest in Singapore, with a long track record of renowned works such as the Raffles Hotel, the Goodwood Park, and they have been extremely in medical business, putting up hospitals like the Raffles Medical Center, the Extension Tower in Beach Road, and they have a couple of projects in China, in Shanghai, and Chongqing, sorry. So Swan has been an innovative commercial and mixed-use hospitality residential development for their clients in Southeast Asia. So without further ado, I would like to bring on our first speaker, talking about wellness trends, Dr. Pansak Sukarat, Assistant Professor for Integrative Medicine. Dr. Pansak is very well-known health expert in the integrative wellness medicine. He has given lectures for all topics involving from anti-aging, regenerative medicine, sexual health related. He joined Bamurat International Hospital for 35 years ago, and he is one of the pioneering team for Vital Life Scientific Wellness Center since the opening its door 19 years ago. So Dr. Pansak, we would like to welcome you. We would like to hear from you, giving us all the inward trend of wellness and within the integration of property investment. Dr. Pansak, welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, and then every guest speaker. The reason why I choose my house to talk is that this is the new normal. We have to live in our comfort compartment. And we know that when we are living in our comfort zone, we feel well, we feel relaxed. We know that nothing harms us too much. In the era of COVID-19, people have to change. So the global wellness trend have to change too. And the property investment may need to change according to the trend in the wellness. So what is the trend in the wellness? We may think about healthy more than wealthy. We may think about security more than prosperity. But if we can integrate all things together, so we can live well, we can live healthy, but by the way, we can work well, and then we can enlarge our system, enlarge our company, and things like that, from the place that we feel comfortable. So for me, wellness starts from security and comfortable, and nothing like home. Sometimes we have home office. Sometimes we have the office that try to make you feel relaxed, like you are working at home and feel safe. And by the way, if we think about wellness as a doctor, actually I'm a doctor who in trend of what we call anti-aging. We want to live long. We want to live young. We want to live in a vitality lifestyle. We want to sleep well. We want to wake up and have a lot of energy. We want to have a good energy during the day. We have to work in the less stress environment. So something like that is the new global trend. And it's not trend only young generation, older generation, middle generation have to work very well together to participate in this wellness trend. But as you know, this is the global wellness economy that they project that. In 2017 and report in 2018 in the global wellness trend, you will see that the wellness real estate still not much, but the wellness tourism is a lot. So if we can incorporate both wellness living and wellness tourism together, you will see that they have a big company like my company also and many companies in this area of the world. They try to incorporate wellness center together with wellness resort and wellness housing. That one will create a single area that everyone can enjoy, living well, living healthy. You see that in the surrounding, there are personal care, there are fitness, there are healthy eating, there are nutrition, there are preventive, there are traditional medicine. That we call it medical wellness. That are very flourished now. But in the future, everyone want to take care of themselves. Everybody don't want to go to the hospital because they may lead to get some infections or some undesirable effect from the hospital. So everyone can feel well. They can sleep at a good time, sleep well, and then when they wake up, they have a lot of energy to go to work, and they can go to work in a good environment that they can work really well. They can use their knowledge, their attitude, their thinking, and incorporate into the work. So the workplace to support that. By the way, we know that the pyramid of the population, or called population dynamic. Now the population dynamic shift to the one who are older than 60. In the previous, we call it the pyramid of population. We have a lot of young generation, but not much number of the old generation. But now the figure is what we call, it look like the going up in the middle, not at the low. It's like a coffin, you know, but a coffin that's extend in the middle and then go up. So we have more and more people getting older than 60. You see that, and most of them are living in Asia. Thailand also will be increased, but most of the people who are older than 60 live in Asia. And if we see the post-COVID era, I cannot guess, but I see from the figure, you know that the people who are died from COVID-19, most of them are in the, what we call the house for the elder and cluster together and get infection because the take care for them is not so good, the immune function is not so good, the sleep quality is not so good, anything like that. So that is one part that we can improve from the property, that can improve from what we call the living quarter, that can improve from what we call the nature living. So in the future, something like this are going to incorporate. I read a lot that they are going to bringing luxury and wellness to senior living in Asia. Why we are going to bringing luxury and wellness to senior living in Asia? Because the expectation of the world, expectation of many things, like if you see from the trend that people get COVID, some country did not have much COVID, And some country like Thailand enjoy that. The elderly are still living very well. Nothing happened to them. They did not go to die as in the Western country. So, we have a lot of rich people who are getting into the elderly. We have a lot of rich men who want to stay healthy and working from home, or can have the meeting to the conference. So the housing project or anything like that, maybe have to catering, something like that, so they can work from their home. They can meeting from their home. That they can work from the home of a lot of facility, include artificial intelligence to connect everything for them, to have something that help to detect if they need some medical support or not. And you see, I'm sit here. My son did not stay with me. I stay only with my wife. We are nearly 70 years old. But in my house, they have a lot of camera to report to my son. He can monitor me all the time. And in the future, we can monitor for the EKG, we can monitor pulse, we can monitor the breath. So the housing for the people, not only older generation, maybe the middle generation, they need something like that to feel secure. Secure to live, secure to sleep. And if I sleep well, I have a lot of energy. So my sleep quality should be the thing that are going along very well with nature. Surrounding me have a lot of tree, a lot of garden. And that make the air very good and feel good to see green, something like that. That is what we call wellness in your housing. And wellness, something like this, we need a project. And I show you, we have the project from China, we have the project in Malaysia, Singapore, and Thailand develop a lot beside the seaside. They are on the hillside, many things that are going to be what we call tropical paradise. The people here want to live long and healthy, and the people from other countries want to come here to live long together with the nature. And if people are going to live around what we call blue zone. Blue zone is the area where people are living well together with the nature. One are in the Okinawa. The second are in the area of the Greece, and the third are in the Sardinia of the Italy. The fourth may be Loma Linda, something like that. That one is the area that the housing go along well with nature. So the design, something like that, should be for the people to work well, sleep well, with a good security. So should be not interfere by any electronic, the one that I say blue zone. In that area, they have less electronic stimulation. So the design of the bedroom, the design of the house may have to facilitate something like that. The light, something like that. The light when you are working during daytime should be a daylight. But in the evening, you may need night light to stimulate the melatonin production, and then you go to sleep. And you may need something to block the electronic signal not to get into your bedroom so that you will feel well. And then we wake up in the morning, you have a lot of energy. When you wake up in the morning, we have a lot of energy. That's good. By the way, we may need a good facility for people in every age to do a good exercise. Because exercise stimulates the production, the hormone for wellness. Hormone for wellness is a lot, not only a single hormone. And it will stimulate to be produced well if you have a good exercise, if you sleep well, if you eat good food. By the way, the last but not least, John Hopkins have to do a big research for 75 years and find out that people who are happy live long. So this is incorporated into what we call living well the wellness way. You may need the elderly care housing that I told you, something like that. And then it incorporates into some area, we call it like the wellness resort for the young who can go at the weekend and come back with a lot of energy. And all that connect to the wellness hospital, not the illness hospital anymore. We are going to shift from illness to wellness. To shift from illness to wellness, everyone have to go along with the principle of wellness concept. Wellness concept is living well in the nature. So the nature of work, the nature of writing, the nature of sleeping, the nature of leisure, the nature of exercising. And the new research found out that, nowadays people work a lot in the building that did not have any shining of the light. And then we are lost what I call vitamin D. And vitamin D is good for hormone production, for you to live long. It is in the process to produce what we call testosterone, both in a man and a lady. And we know that that hormone is the index of living long and healthy. So vitamin D from the sun is needed. But by the way, you can give the vitamin D supplement that easy for doctor to give. But the sunlight exposure have been measured that if you have at least 8 hours of sunlight exposure, direct or indirect, that night you will sleep well. So the new pattern of the housing should facilitate something like that. So in overall, we will see that the wellness does come from you. The wellness comes from how you live. So for me, eating well, living well, working well, sleeping well, and mindfulness is the way of living well, the wellness way. So the property, anything like that, should have the principle and the concept to go along well with this one. Though we know that we still not have much of the elderly nowadays, but the number are going up, going up, going up. And the number of the young generation are going down, going down, going down. So the elderly cannot depend on their young generation anymore. So every facility in the property, housing, living quarter should facilitate the elderly to be active person, active until the last day of their life. And that is the message from me. Like I work a lot in the wellness, take care a lot of the people from the big CEO, big managing director to the young generation. Everyone want to live long and healthy in a good living quarter, work in a good working quarter. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pansak. Thank you. I'm looking at the wellness trend for today that you're advising us is looking at places that that have lots of sunlight. People are looking for proper sleep element. Make sure that properties and architects like Terence and Chris will be able to design a home with sunlight that one is able to absorb and replace and get good vitamin D. Now, thank you, Achan. Thank you. We will come to you with every Q&A. Please, all my attendees and my guests, please, if you have any questions, kindly key in your question into Q&A. And please take note that this webinar is going live on YouTube at the same time. And we will have a recording for those who have registered. We will be sending you the recording. At the same time, please do not forget to scan in your QR code at the back of our screen that you can participate in our WhatsApp. Will be an ongoing networking that all of us can be involved in. Now, I would like to welcome back Terence Low, our Director of Swan McCarran. Terence is an architect registered in Singapore Board of Architects who has been delivering projects in Singapore and the region over 25 years. As the Director of Swan McCarran, Terence worked closely with architectural production teams on various projects of different scale and complexity, focusing on healthcare. So Terence, I think today you got a very good dimension and insight to tell us what architecture will be in terms of a good property investment scale and what the trend will be for today's wellness and healthcare. Terence, welcome back.
Thanks for the introduction, Anthony. I'll just dive right into the presentation and share my screen, the PowerPoint. I hope it's come up now. Okay. In preparation for this webinar, started looking at some of the trends, not so much trends in architecture, but more social trends, because a lot of architecture is actually driven by social trends. And based on what I could pick out from, I think, the previous webinars, as well as my own experience in the field of architecture, I've listed down these on the screen right now. As countries get more affluent, and this webinar has actually got a bit of a focus on Southeast Asia and China. Okay, what we've noticed is that there is starting to be a greater awareness of mental health. okay, and how that is starting to figure in the way people take care of themselves, okay. But in Asia, in Southeast Asia and in East Asia, I think there is still a bit of stigma attached to that. That is not necessarily a trend that could influence architecture in the built form directly, but it could perhaps be bundled together with some of the other trends, okay, and those would actually influence, I think, the built form, okay. The other trend also that I've noticed is management of addictions, okay, which is also related to mental health. The two of them also then bundle into how we can start to design communities based on wellness, all right? And one of the very big trends, which Dr. Pansa has actually touched on, is the fact that in Southeast Asia and in China as well, the populations are rapidly aging. Okay? And bundled over all of that, overlaid with all of that, is one trend that's actually been developing over time. Let me just see if I can. Yes, is that people are more and more willing to relocate for wellness, travel for wellness, not necessarily just for medical tourism, okay, but also as they're growing older, they look for places away from their place of birth to live, things like that. So I'll go through some of these issues more in detail right now. So the first 4 trends that I spoke about. The first one, the awareness of mental health and awareness. I've mentioned that especially in East Asia and Southeast Asia, I think there is still a stigma attached to this. So the place for this is important, is going to be addressed by medical practitioners and wellness practitioners. But I do rather see that we need to cater facilities which are a bit more discreet, and perhaps they're going to be bundled together with other kinds of wellness facilities. You may not see so many standalone facilities, but you may see treatment and therapy for mental health and wellness as part of an overall offering in a wellness facility, for example. Okay. This relates actually to addiction management as well, because a lot of addiction is also related to mental states and to personality types. And I actually chanced upon this, not chanced upon this, but this trend was brought to my attention, I think, because of something that one of the speakers said, Dr. Nam, in I think the 3rd webinar in this series, where he was talking about satellite accident and emergency A&E facilities within a city. And that's not something that I'm familiar with in Singapore, but I remember seeing that when I was down in Sydney. And it made me think, it got me thinking that the trend really is that as a country or as a region becomes more affluent, and especially if you are close to areas that are like beach resorts or where there's a bit more of a party vibe, for example, you may get more of an issue with intoxicants and intoxicant abuse, okay, alcohol, perhaps recreational drugs, that sort of thing. And it may be more of an issue in areas, in countries that are large, where enforcement cannot be as 100% as it is in smaller countries. So we may see that trend, not that it influences property investment so much, but I think the downstream from that, you may see more need for facilities for rehab and therapy and things like that, and those could be woven into developments devoted to wellness. Okay, so related to that, I mentioned that, and Dr. Pansa has also mentioned, there's a whole lot of data. Southeast Asia, China have among the fastest aging populations in the world. Okay, within a few decades, within a couple of generations, you will see the older generation overtake the younger in different countries. I think obviously in some countries in China, they're further behind on this journey. Some countries are further ahead. So Thailand is rapidly aging as well. I believe Vietnam is as well. Okay, Singapore is well on that path. And China is also going there because they're now starting to see the after effects of the one-child policy. All right. So in Southeast Asia and in East Asia, how this affects the response from architecture and the built form is that the elderly are still seen as very much an important part of the family unit. Okay, so even though we may have to see more independent living with rising affluence among the elderly, the trend still is, at least in Singapore as I've seen, that they still want to live closer to their offspring, they're closer to their children, to the grandchildren. And we've seen the trend here in Singapore for apartments that are called dual key here, where effectively you have one big apartment, but you have something like a sub-apartment within that with its own entrance. And that can either be rented out as an investment, or it can be used for your parents or your parents-in-law, and they can also help to look after your kids, their grandkids. There's also a trend for granny flats, for want of a better term, little self-contained units which are closer to other residential developments. Okay, so what we're also seeing is that there are developments which are focused on wellness-based retirement. Okay, not just aged care. Okay, I think we should be architects should be moving away, or should be trying to push the direction away from very nursing home oriented kind of architecture when we think about architecture for the elderly, of older folk. Okay, but we really want to think of living spaces that are accommodating to people of all ages. Okay, that we don't think of aging places just an afterthought. Okay, but that it's woven into the urban fabric and into the built form as well. Okay, so I personally, as an architect, would hope to see that we move more towards inclusive programming. Okay, avoiding nursing home kind of thinking. So age-friendly design within the wider community feeds into the next trend, which is we're starting to see thinking within property developers that you can start to design communities based on wellness. All right. There are some developments, I think residential developments, which do this a little bit by tokenism. So they've got like a spa deck in your condo, for example, or a wellness garden in the sky, all right, within your high-rise residential development. But I think this trend can go even further when you can see even larger communities catering not just to the wellness of the individual occupants, but also to how they can cater to the wellness of older populations that are living within them, among them. Okay, I have an example in China to share with you guys. I'll go through that in I think a couple slides down, but overlay all of that is the trend that people are actually willing to move. Okay, and it's not just medical tourism. Everyone's familiar with that trend now. That's been a trend for decades. Okay, but we've also been seeing trends of people be willing to retire as they grow older, but retire in a different region, retire in a different country where perhaps you don't have really, really harsh winters, for example, because the older you get, I think we're finding that the cold is not as easy to bear. Okay, there's also a trend, and I think Thailand leads the way in Southeast Asia, East Asia, for rehab abroad. Okay, because everybody is aware of facilities like the Betty Ford Clinic, for example, in the US. But with rising use of recreational drugs and with more alcohol and stuff, and we may see a greater need for people traveling for this. Okay, so all of these trends that we've looked at, I think a number of them are actually encapsulated in the project that Swan McLaren has done, and I'd like to actually maybe give you just a brief idea of what it is. It's a very it's a pretty large development. This was a master planned development in China that was actually built. Okay, and forgive my pronunciation, but I think it's called Bo Ao Jin Wan, and it's located in the town of Bo Ao in Hainan Island, which is in the very south of China. And for those of you who know the geography of China, that is part of China that's actually subtropical. Okay, it's very green. It's got an island resort kind of feel to it, and that's where they hosted the Miss World contests. A lot of times, you've got beautiful beaches. So this Bo Ao Jin Wan was a community that was actually master planned, focused on wellness, and the intended occupants, the intended market that they were going to market this to, was actually people within China who had already made their fortune in China's booming economy, and were looking for a good place to stay, a comfortable place to stay, a secure place to stay. As we know that China's been hit by food scandals over the past couple of decades, they also, I think, generate a whole lot of electricity still from the burning of coal. So in certain areas, the air quality is not as good. So this community was actually planned to attract people who already have a certain amount of wealth, and they wanted to move somewhere that was secure and safe and healthy and focus on their wellness, and not necessarily people who are in their old age and retiring, but people who are coming here and not maybe working full-time anymore. All right, so it was focused entirely on wellness, very much on wellness, by the side of the sea, very green, with warm climate, the central spine center planned with retail plus wellness clinics and other facilities. Size of the site was 165 hectares, so not that small. The built-up floor area was about almost 2 million square meters, and it catered to not the largest of communities, but about 27,000 persons. So I'd like to draw your attention to the plots. So we master planned 5 plots within the community, and the plot that I've highlighted there, plot E, was actually targeted for the slightly older folk. Okay, there's older segment within the overall community. Okay, and I'll take you through that plot E right now. This was a cluster within a cluster, and within this cluster of plot E, it was also zoned into precincts. Okay, and I think the design direction was to take the response to a slightly older population in a very subtle fashion. Okay, so that things like the orientation, the wayfinding was made very, very clear in case slightly older folk might have found it a bit more difficult. Sorry, if they wanted easier wayfinding or orientation. So it was planned axially with precincts and zones, each with a different theme, and with the waterways and water features used as orientation devices. Okay? So the idea, I think, was that with the cognitive impairment that actually can come with older age, all of this and the familiarity built up with your own living area would help the older folk actually navigate. Okay, but I think I think what we did was we tried to keep this response as subtle as possible. Okay. There were also facilities that you would see in any other residential development. So there's a central community clubhouse, okay? And it was also planned around the idea of active aging in place. So there were dotted all over the various housing clusters, all locations for activity, not just physical activity, although there was a lot. So there were things like jogging tracks, sports, fishing areas, gardens, okay, and there were places that were devoted to other kinds of activity for mental health as well, so places for meditation, gardens, reading gardens. There was also areas set aside for interaction with different generations, so kids' playgrounds and stuff like that, okay, all designed to keep the older folk who might be moving here active and engaged and close to their families, right? So at the macro level, I won't go into detail, but at the macro level, you can see that the units do not differ significantly from units in any other residential development. All right. The intention really is that if you're going to have, you're going to cater to the elderly, you don't want to hammer the message home that you're older, you're more infirm, you need the help, you need grab bars, you need all of that. All right. That sort of thing has its time and its place. If somebody is not in a good state of health, they can be moved to a facility. But I think the trend that we're seeing is that the older folk, yet they still want to remain independent, and they want to live, as Dr. Pansak has mentioned, in enough luxury to which they are accustomed to. Okay, so I hope I've given you a flavor of what we have done and how some of these trends can actually be translated into the built form. And just a final message that if we, capitalize and look at the trends carefully and how to take them to the next level, okay, there may be an opportunity actually to monetize this. And I think our next three speakers will actually be talking about that. Okay, so I'll leave you with that thought right now.
Thank you, Terence. Thank you so much. Very insight. Well, Terence, looks like you are looking into real estate, wellness, moving towards very much on the senior level. Yes, I do believe that is a very big demand now, but again, it all varies on where, what size and what kind of facilities will come in. So we would like to welcome our next speaker, really looking at real estate changing landscape. I think our next speaker, David. David is an associate in Third 500. He's a boutique investment bank with offices in Chicago, Singapore, and Thailand, focusing on financial advisory on emerging growth companies. David has worked on equity, debt capital, raising US and Thai healthcare companies. So David, I believe you got a very good insight for us to tell us how well is Third 500 investing into healthcare and what healthcare potential is in terms of the coming future. So David, welcome on board.
Hi, thank you, Anthony, and thank you everyone for joining this webinar. Let me just jump right into my presentation. Okay, so basically what I'll touch on today, my brief presentation will be looking at some hard data in terms of wellness real estate itself. and as well as the overall wellness or the overall real estate market, given pre and post COVID data, and then I'll touch on some of the qualitative impacts that COVID has on the wellness real estate and how that should be moving forward. Anthony has given a brief introduction, but let me just go through this briefly. So my name is David Bankert, an associate at the investment bank 3500. We focus on emerging growth companies, and these are companies that are in its early stages of recognizing revenue and are at an inflection point of growing at an extremely fast pace, and we represent these companies. Over 20 years of the experience of the company, we've raised over $1.5 billion for our clients, and we hope we can continue to do so. So let's just get into the presentation. So in 2018, there was a report by the Global Wellness Institute, which
Hi, David. Sorry, yeah, I don't see your presentation. You got to share your presentation.
Oh.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. Thank you, David. Thank you. Yep.
So everybody seeing the presentation?
Yes, we see it now. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I was having that on the whole time, but all right. Apologies for that. So in 2018, there was a report by the Global Wellness Institute, which quantified the market for global wellness real estate at about $135 billion and growing at 6.5%. The largest markets for global wellness real estate is the US at about 53 billion in size. And then you have Asia, most of which is China, Australia, South Korea, Japan also in the mix. But this market is really one of the fastest growing market in terms of global wellness real estate. And the reason why Asia is really one of the driving force for growth is that you have shifting demographics, right? You have China, that's really pushing in terms of emerging middle classes. You have India, emerging middle class, and you have Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam. But you also have demographics that Terns actually talked about, where I actually have some statistics. I think in China by 2040, roughly 500 million people will be categorized as aged. And in Thailand, for instance, that's about 17 to 20 million by 2050, but that's roughly 20 to 25% of the population. So what we see is really that the aging society is what's really driving the awareness and the acceptance of, developing real estate in wellness aspects. So that's really what's driving Asia, and a lot of research actually suggests that Asia would probably replace America or North America as the largest market for global wellness real estate. There aren't so far a tracker or any institute that tracks wellness real estate on a frequent basis. But I hope I can, with the overall real estate market, give some picture about what's been happening, and a lot of questions, obviously, about how COVID-19 has impacted the real estate market. And what we've seen is that in the first half of 2020, activities in real estate transactions has dropped by about 32%. But this drop is really not even across all markets. You see Japan and you see South Korea still, maintaining the same type of activities over the first half of 2020, but you see other markets which are more reliant on foreign direct investments. And that's, for instance, Hong Kong, Australia, Singapore, for instance. And you might recognize these markets as being one of the targets for Chinese investors. And that is also the reason why a lockdown and restrictions on traveling is really affecting real estate transactions over the past 3 to 6 months. We've seen valuations in Hong Kong, for instance, and I think everybody knows that Hong Kong was for a time one of the hottest real estate market. Of course, with domestic violence and protests, that has impacted activities somewhat, but certainly COVID-19 is really exacerbating the effects of these uncertainties domestically. And so when you look at these country-specific issues, you see that the impact is not even. but not only in markets, but we also see that the effects of the COVID-19 on real estate is also uneven in terms of sector. We see that industrials is down about 6% in the first half of 2020. And the softer blow to the industrials is probably mainly because of how consumers are changing their behaviors in terms of shopping. E-commerce is really pushing the boundaries here. And I think the interesting part about COVID is not that it's disrupting or destroying industries, but COVID is really accelerating change, right? We've seen that a shift from brick to mortar to e-commerce has been going on, but with COVID, that change is happening faster. And so investments in real estate is also changing faster, and what has been happening is happening faster, right? And so investments in wellness real estate is happening faster. Investments in warehouses, for instance, is happening faster. Logistics is happening faster, and that's really the effects that is the result of COVID-19. And so we've seen that industrials aren't as affected, but we also see that hospitality and retail has been far more affected by COVID-19. But obviously the shorter term nature of foot traffic and guests is also something that plays a role in that. We've had the discussion with investors in terms of office building investments, and most of the stance is more about wait and see. The key question really is in terms of demand, right? Because what will happen to work from home? Will work from home stay, or will we all go back to the office after everything clears up and we have a vaccine? That's really still an open question. So investments in office buildings will remain somewhat uncertain, and so that's the larger picture of the real estate market over the past 3 to 6 months. But how I would shift towards the wellness real estate is to give a small statistic to think about. The global size of the real estate market is roughly 9.6 trillion in size in US dollars. And the wellness real estate itself is about 135, right? So that's roughly 1 to 2% of the global market. When you have such systematic shifts, certainly it affects the wellness real estate. But when you think about the potential growth and the upside to the wellness real estate, I do think that the change with COVID is really acting as a positive effect or positive tailwind to the global wellness real estate rather than a headwind. And these are some of the statistics that I found, which is quite interesting when you think about it. There has been a wave of attention for wellness, given healthy lifestyle trends with younger generations and older generations alike. You have also COVID, which has brought about more attention toward staying safe and healthy. And so investors, companies, and communities are gaining more attention and becoming more aware of the health and financial benefits of incorporating wellness aspects to real estate development. The World Health Organization actually published a report which says that about $1 trillion per year of productivity is lost due to workplace depression and anxiety. And you think about this number is roughly the size of the Indonesian GDP, and Indonesia is the 16th largest economy in the world. So there is tremendous value in improving the situation, especially in workplace environment. And I think wellness is a crucial step toward that. And so a lot of research and a lot of consultants in the real estate space has been pushing for a best-in-class working environment, and that's incorporating wellness and mental well-being for employees working at these offices, and really retaining and maintaining employees and talent is really a key management strategy for a lot of companies, because given how hard it is to retain such talent. And so if you really just add the component of incorporating wellness into your offices or your office space or your office building, that could in research result in a 3% increase in productivity, in profitability from productivity enhancement. And that's the part in terms of a company, occupying an office space. But on the other hand, you have investors or developers who develop these properties, and the question is, what is it in it? What is in it for them, right? And what research has found is that when developers incorporate wellness and lifestyle aspects to property development, there is an up to 25% increase in sales premium. And so that's on the private side. On a public side, we have an emergence of ESG investing. And I hope everybody has heard about ESG because it's one of the biggest thing in public market investments over the past 5 years. In 2015, $15 trillion is under management in terms of ESG funds. Today in 2020, there's 40.5 trillion. So that's roughly 3.5x increase over a matter of 5 years. Even as recently as in July, Nikkei has launched an ESG REIT fund. So when you think about investors or property developers, there is a public market exit at the waiting, and 70% of investors are actually, taking consideration about how climate change, sustainability, wellness aspects actually play into the property itself. And finally, just to give a real life example about all these statistics, Gaeson Towers is a mixed-use project right in the center of Bangkok. It's a retail and office space, but it also has incorporated wellness-inspired facilities to the project. Besides its nature-inspired and green areas-inspired design from the exterior, you also have what's called Gaeson Urban Resort at the top of the tower, and that's basically an office and a business center-like office space where it incorporates natural lighting, it incorporates community-type lounges and areas for a meeting, an area for people to chit chat and network. And that's really something that recently, it's quite recent in Bangkok because we haven't seen a lot of that yet, but one of the first high-profile developer that has actually incorporated wellness full-scale is Gaeson Tower. And the result from this, or perhaps partly from this, is that today Gaeson Tower is one of the most expensive rental space in Bangkok. It commands 1.5 thousand baht per month for rental space. That's roughly 40% higher than the city's average. Right across the street, the Central World office building, it actually asks for 1,200. So, you have certainly a new building comes into play, but what I think is also playing a part in the tower being able to demand higher prices is its design and wellness aspects to it. And just, again, also, apart from the business center, it also has a urban retreat, what it's called, but it's basically just a wellness facility. What this facility offers is, natural lighting, simple designs, spa treatment, onsens, deep sleep programs, personalized wellness packages, and so on. And that's just the other aspects of the tower. That's what we can probably see, that the tower has fully embraced wellness into its design, and the result shows. So let me just conclude briefly. The key takeaway, I think, from my research and presentation is that wellness real estate is really just in its infancy. 135 billion, roughly 1% of the global real estate market. So the opportunity is magnificent. It's gigantic. And both economic and demographic shifts is really acting as a tailwind for the global wellness real estate market. Certainly COVID is acting also as a tailwind. Pollution concerns in cities like Delhi, Bangkok, Beijing, Shanghai, it's all just, supporting the argument for wellness real estate, right? And so people, both the population of the cities and employees of companies, they're all, supporting wellness real estate. And finally, it's not philanthropic. So basically when you incorporate wellness real estate, the result is that you're financially rewarded. And that comes in form of higher rental prices, sales prices, but also for companies that occupy these buildings, it comes in form of higher productivity. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, David. Thank you for letting you know that there's 135 billion has been invested into wellness property, and that's 1% of the total real estate takings. I think that's very promising. I see lots of uptaking now in demand for people looking into combining and integrating wellness into property mixed use. Well, we bring in our next two speakers, very interesting now. I think we're going to combine two speakers in one presentation. We have Tan Wan, who's a partner at Grand Thornton, Thailand. Tan Wan has co-founded and led an independent law firm that advised clients, investment, custom, trade laws, nearly a decade. He has led corporate into legal due diligence review, context of merger and acquisition, and preparation of IP offerings. So I think Tan-Wan, welcome. And I would like to also welcome Kun Wei Pibun from Real Excite. Wei Pibun is the CEO of Real Excite Company Real Estate of a fundraising startups. This is something very exciting that he will be able to share with us together with Tan-Wan on what kind of fundings are available now. So Pibun, Wei Pibun has been commissioning a stock exchange. He's been helping out with Ministry of Finance, etc. His identity basically explores the real estate projects investment, crowdfunding, that is something very new in this part of the world, security tokens, which we call STO for clients, and he also maintains his platform operating aligned with financials, regulations such as KYC, AML, and cybersecurity, etc. So gentlemen, I'd like to welcome these two gentlemen to really give us a real insight about investments and where we could be looking and sourcing for funds for projects that's out there. Welcome to the both of you.
Well, thank you, Anthony. So, yeah, Sawadee Krab. It will be Wade and myself hosting this part. I would just give a brief introduction. I think a lot of people have heard about crowdfunding, tokenizations, security tokens or STOs. So today I hope to provide people with some context and some background on what that means and give you some ideas of how it is being utilized globally right now as an alternative means of funding. So just to give you a background, traditionally for many real estate developers or property owners, there's always a pain point that the whole fundraising part, right? A lot of it, because of the nature of real estate, a lot of funds are required. The developers themselves have to raise the fund out of their own pocket. And then the traditional means of funding would be obviously through financial institutions or through REITs in the stock market. And these generally are available to large companies, publicly listed companies, or very large venture capitals. There are a lot of developers and investors who are mid-sized, whose property might not be in the hundreds of millions of dollars, whereby access to a stock market might not be feasible. So there are now alternatives in terms of tokenization, security tokens, crowdfunding, whereby a smaller scale project, let's say 30 to 50 million US dollars, could foreseeably raise funds with the public. And so today, what Kun Wade will walk you through is the technology end and give you some examples of how such structures are being utilized. For my part, I work with him on the legal matters. Obviously, I'm based in Thailand. The sweet thing about this type of funding is that we are not restricted to local regulators. Obviously, it has to be regulated. For example, in the US or in Switzerland, in Japan, there are regulators. For Thailand, we are still a bit conservative and the regulations are not quite as advanced. But there are Thai companies that are now leading the way and exploring and utilizing these method of funding. So yeah, without much further ado, I would ask Kun Wei to just help us run through the slides and give you some ideas of what it is.
Okay, thanks, Tan-Wan, my partner. First of all, yeah, thank you for you all guys to join this session. And I think everyone here is sharing experience in a lot of experience in building the wellness and how important before and after the COVID period. But for us, is just me explain briefly what we are doing. The Real Excite is we can say we are the funding portal to be in between the developers who want to raise a fund for the particular project. And on the other side, we link with the network of investors who would be like can be like institution investors and also retail investors who want to invest in lower scale, we can say, not that big project, but still in the middle, it's more into middle. That is fit with the requirements from our developer side, that is just middle and small developers. That is what we are coming in by plugging with the technologies. In this case, it's a crowdfunding and we can say the STO that they will explain later. Let's come back to the key challenge of the real estate. As Tanwa said briefly, that of course we all know that it is very, obstacle for the middle or smaller real estate developers to come to get a fund for the project. And yeah, because of that one, it have the room for us to come in and do something that is reliable enough for investors to come in. So this is the high potential of the challenges. Mostly the sizing of the project, and also the economy itself, especially in Thailand. The going to instance to the financial situation is one of the big problems of every kind of businesses. So now we come up with the concept like the real estate crowdfunding. I think it is it's not that new right now. I think many of you guys may be familiar with it first, but we just plugged in to the real estate side. It is the real estate crowdfunding is allowed individuals to invest and pool the investment to come up with some returns, right? Or even the owners of that real estate project, right? And we come up with a big amount and we invest. The yield is depend, right? Right now is as in our portfolio is about 6 to 15% per year. This is a yield. According to the static from Forbes, I think this idea is not that new as said. It has come up with the numbers since 2016. It's about 3.5 billion. The company on real estate wants rental fund to this channel, but expected to in 2025, it's going to be up to $300 billion US dollars. There's a huge value that it is the optional or selective of the real estate business to respond to this. I don't say it is all. It's just a part of the project. In our case, let's say, as our experience is about 10 to 20 or 30% of the whole project values that they choose as an optional to fulfill the gaps of the fund requirements. They can say that. So I just going to some operational that to see more qualification of a process and what we are doing. So the project is come up with the real estate developers or the company who want to they have their project, right? Real estate project, not even the new one, or just develop or improve the facilities. In this case, we saw some direction of before and after the pandemic is many of the small or middle hotels and come to us with their own facilities, and they want additional on top as funding to make rehab to change their style to be more medical or some architect to support the requirements of the regulation of the like social distancing or so on. So they come to us, and what we do is we do the project due diligence. At least we check whether this project is how the entity and also the facility, how it works, and we come up with the feasibility analysis, and then we do some fundraising method, right? Credit scoring. We do KYC, know your customer, or AML, anti-money laundering, to filter the investor in a platform, and then we do crowdfunding, right? The time frame of the crowdfunding is various. It depends on how huge of the project or what is the sophisticated of the project itself. But for us, it's around 1 to 3 months window time. And yeah, of course, we bring with how to control the payment or the investment. And at last, once all the thing is done, we point to a platform, and in that platform we will have the network of investors who can see the project that's coming, the list on a platform with or analytical. It's just a proposal or investment. And then they go through and there's some condition whatsoever. And after the project, it's of course it must be 100% funded or at least 80% as our regulations. That treat as that project is success. And then we do we call post crowdfunding transaction. I mean, we do the equity or subscription to the investor, and of course we transfer the project as a project timeline or project requirement. That is in charge of all the flow of our crowdfunding. And the use case one, I think I just choose some that is quite interesting, but I think it's 100 or hundreds of projects that's already succeed to this kind of fundraising, including the wellness property. But for it is just we can say it is origin. It is developers in Europe, right? Raised 105 million just only in 17 hours, right? It is very fast. They use the technology wise, and the next phase is Jeffer and co-raised 14 million to the RE crowdfunding. It is in total is 400 investors networking, and last in US, they have their own portfolio since they start the business. Is about 500 million portfolio of invest the property. So you see, it is I can say it is optional or some alternative for the one who want to raise a fund to adjust their own facility to fit with the new changing after the pollution period or the COVID period. The next one is quite, I think it's about, the concept is the same. It is we raise a fund to, let's say, the retail investors, but we use the technology wise to make it spread over the region, right? It's cross country. So, and use the technology that we call the blockchain, right? To make the, let's say, the track and trace and to validate it of the transaction of the investor easier. So the process is the same. They come up with the project, and then we do like the offline transaction. We do due diligence. We do all the thing is about the feasibility. But the difference is we design, right? Design we call digital token structure. We have to decide how they can use for the investor, how it can be, let's say, automatically enforced when the transaction occur. For example, once the project is funded, fully funded, this smart contract is automatically transfer the token to the investor or around, we can say it's all around the world, the one that can reach, that is in our blockchain system. So this is the concept is just we can invest any property across the board with the token in return. But in addition of this, it should be have like you may be familiar with a crypto exchange. That is one of the privilege of this kind of investment. It is we can trade maybe after six months of the project life, they can trade or exit from this investment easier. And this is a concept of the real estate tokenization. And yeah, there's a real use case. I think one of the very well-known use case in real estate tokenization is the St. Regis aspect. It is the hotel facility that lets a fund, but it's just only 20% as if I'm not wrong, from their all funding. Its total is $18 million to invest. Is do the transaction since 2018. Right now, I think they changed the exchange from securitized to T0. That is, possibly the value of the token is, I think, more than $100 percent that increase after two-year investment. And it is one of the case. It is also a popular one is the tokenization of 30 million Manhattan real estate property. In this case, a hotel. And this is also one of the big case. It is Liquify. It is the platform, the tokenization platform from Hong Kong. They do the contract with the Gulf family in UAE and to do the securitize or digitalize the property. In this case, a luxury hotel. The value is very huge. It's 600 million USD. It is the biggest. I think one of the biggest deal of the contract. So let's talk about the thing that people see after COVID. Even this kind of, I think the thing that's still going on is, or even harder, that foresee is the developers, real estate developers still cannot access to the financing. So this leads to the way of optional fundraising. And they were going to come up with several. One of them is, the crowdfunding, real estate crowdfunding, and also the tokenization. Or even us. Before and after, we, as I mentioned, there are several projects and come to talk with us that they bring the hotels and do the tokenization and want to raise to another kind of business. Because as you know, because the people cannot travel, right, to another country. The hotel in the real country should be, I think, facing the same, especially the company that have to align with the tourism industry like Thailand or another country. So the hotel itself, they're going to change, right? Or even the condominium themselves, right? The floating period, they're going to change. But because they cannot access to the financial institution or traditional financing, they find the tools. That we foresee there's a trend of the fundraising to digitalize going to be more obviously increase, right? As we see, ER is the one who, there's a fund from Aspen, St. Regis Aspen. They already do the contract with Semico. It is the security company in Thailand. They're gonna raise 100 million USD for Thai project, like real estate project. A French fintech, right? Also 78 million in Paris real estate tokenization deals during the pandemic period. I think last on June, if I'm wrong. And the last one is a Backmonto Capital. They're going to launch STO in June the same, right? The value is a lot. It's around 12 euro. It's foreseen that even the pandemic is still going on, but the fundraising also still rising. So for our opinion, it is they're going to come. The developer is going to come over to talk with these portals, and you're going to see this kind of fundraising a lot more maybe in the second half of this year or even the beginning of next year. And I think, apart from the regulation wise, this trend is going to be ongoing. I think that's all for our sharing for this kind of fundraising.
Thank you, Kawan. Thank you so much. Very interesting. Well, we are already running a little bit tight on time, but we got another 20 minutes left. So we'd like to just remind everybody with your questions. Please, if you have any questions, kindly fill into the Q&A box at the bottom right of your screen, so we could take it immediately after our anchor speaker and our last speaker, Chris, who is the International Medical Director of Swan & McCarran. Chris, I would like you to put things in sharp, sweet, and precise. And thank you for being so patient there, being our last speaker, Chris. Welcome back.
Well, that's fine. I'm glad to be here again. And I hope I can summarize nicely all the discussions that have been happening all over the past weeks in these seminars. One moment. And play. I'm shifting from to a Mac on this. So I think, first of all, thanks Anthony and everybody for attending. In wellness, what we've been really talking about is creation of that wellness space for the body, the mind, and the spirit. And over the course of the discourses, you've heard from various people. And I think what's key in this wonderful seminar today is that wellness is, of course, is a growth market. I think people mentioned this many times in the other seminars, but it's really being brought home today. Also within that, we've been talking about biophilic design, which is how we can be creating that healthy environment through the materials that we use, the paints, the air conditioning, etc., how we can reduce our reliance on such systems and retaining a closer impact to nature for ourselves. But also the IoT, this innovation and connectivity, which under COVID has led us to a lot of pushing the boundaries. And as people have been saying, increasing the movement forward for these things, which were before being looked at in 5 years' time, et cetera, is now happening now with contact tracing on apps and things like that. And also the hotels moving right to your phone now for key access. I've been in lockdown for a number of months now and actually living in a service apartment, and we've got a key access controls for ourselves. Also, the wellness is a full life, full cycle for work, live, and play. It impacts everything that we do, our homes, our workplaces, the commercial sector, private and government apartments and houses, how we look forward in designing those with a new norm, as we've been talking about, and how the new regulations can come in on that. And also in the leisure and hospitality sectors, how they've been adapting and the new elements that we'd be adding into the hotels, et cetera, to make people feel safe and secure, but also to bring in that wellness component into developments. And lastly, there's wonderful people have been talking about it today, because it is something I was going to raise as well. This whole wellness is our aging populations globally and specifically in Asia. So as people's had this note before, clearly it's a growth market. We've got $996 billion hiding in the wellness sectors relating to the spa, thermals, wellness tourism itself, also the wellness estate. But workplace wellness, being that little small sector, I think is a growth market for everybody. And combining those together, the interesting thing is that the CEO of Mori Trust was quoted in another global wellness that wellness for all is one of their key visions for real estate developments. So institutions are looking at this closely now, and it's becoming, as mentioned, value adds to projects for 25% increased rentals, et cetera. And that's striking the balance of wellness design. So we're looking at, as our creative toolbox we mentioned before, our program, what we want to insert in the buildings, the environment it sits in, and also the environment it creates for ourselves, the amount of light, space, air, and the materials we're using are all with the architects and designers that we use as our toolbox to develop these. And we've discussed that, how we're looking at realizing the wellness value in developments recently. In the last 15 years, through my stays in Thailand and also here in Singapore, wellness in the workplace is increasing. Developments that we've been working on and privileged to be a part of, such as Raffles Hospital's extension, the tower, has incorporated connections to light and air in amongst the design of the building. And a small project we had in the workplace for the Hive is using light and air to increase the presence it has on both on the street, but also the occupancies, getting that light that Dr. Ponsak was saying, 8 hours a day, natural light is good for us. And also that wellness inclusion in our homes, our hospitality and leisure sectors. These are creating opportunities for healthy lives. Now, of course, resorts and hotels have been developing these, and particularly in Thailand over the years, have excelled at making leisure destinations and wellness spas. But now we're adding into that, not only the body, the mind, and spirit, but the health. And this is where the two come together. I think there's great opportunity for that. And that would lead us into this idea of the silver tsunami in our aging population, which has been touched on today by Terence and also our other speakers, Dr. Ponsak, about how our active aging can be facilitated. Of course, it's a global issue. It's not just a local, but it's very focused in Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, of course, Japan and China having a huge population. A small figure for them would represent a huge market. So that is where we talk about lifestyle design for active aging. So us as designers and clients come together, we can look at the healthcare facilities to create family, community for life, integrated into our designs for active aging and wellness centers. What the Japanese actually call is kanrike, which is 60th birthday. They don't look at it as I'm old. They look at it as, this is my next step in life. I have lots to explore. And they look forward to that celebration. And I think this is the way to approach it. And then asking elderly, we're looking at what they want in the community care centers that they're asking for, the homes that they're looking at. They want to remain active, they want to remain social, and of course healthy. And at the same time, feel that they are in a secure and safe environment. So that's aging in place. So we have to be, as designers and developers, creating flexibility and adaptability within, as Terrence was saying, the apartments and the condominiums having granny flats or having extra keys that can accommodate family members. Having larger units for flexible change to allow for those wheelchairs in necessity and later on in life. Also that importance of exercise. Continuing education is very important to the elderly. And being close, as Terrence was saying, close to family and friends and a familiar environment. So it's not that we are moving our parents to a facility away from us, it's that our parents are living close to us within a facility in our community. And this, I think, is what's key for developers to realize, and also governments. And lastly, that we all look forward to having a special environment to be retired to, whether it's in the mountains, the seasides, close to nature, etc. But also these are not possible in cityscapes potentially. So we have to integrate these developments within the city. And within these developments, we're designing to their needs. So flexibility of space, etc. Active age-friendly community creations. This is what's important. That community where active aging and care is an integral part of the housing, the greenscapes, the education, the commercial systems of our cities, where we can create clusterings. For each community, we actively engage in creating the active aging and care centers integrated, whether it's by population or distance, so they are part of our community. They are not far from us. This is one strategy which we were lucky to try and employ in a development in Beijing for a concept. Is a modern development which was integrated for active aging and elder care in the mixed use settings. So this development was, at its core, was actually an elderly community, whether it was a low rise, mid rise, or a high rise complex. You had choice as you got older to shift how you were accommodated, and the facilities within the mixed use development kept you active, kept you close to an office, kept you close to friends and visitors, but also there was medical systems in there. And that was a very exciting concept for us to work on. And that was actually in 2013. So we've been all looking at these kind of issues for the last 7 years and developing also with Anthony concepts for Thailand in such a similar relationship for active aging resorts and retreats. This, I think, is the end of the discussion for what we're talking about, all the opportunities and investments, et cetera, within the wellness system, that community care is actually an opportunity for caring, and that we can make these developments as an integral part of the wellness and wellity systems that we have. And we were adding on these in the discussions that we've been going on about for the house, for the home, for office, for leisure and retail, and finally now for opportunity and caring in wellness. So that I think is how I'd like to sum up, is that in all these sectors, there's an opportunity, and that we should look at now being the time for our developers and our investment partners when we're doing developments to create the groundwork for what is coming as the future. Now's the time to be investing and developing, because then you are ready in the next 2 to 3 years when you open your development. That's it, Anthony. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Thank you. Chris, thank you for giving a very good wrap up on wellness and lifestyle and architectural within all the series that we have. Very quickly, we got another 10 minutes more to run. Please, I ask for each and every one of you to have your questions sent to us immediately so we could try and take all of them as within this next 10 minutes. But nevertheless, we are on live on YouTube, and all our webinars will be recorded and be sent to you. So let's take a few questions first. We have some questions that's already been sent to our speakers, and speakers have already answered them directly to the participants. But I would like to take one or two because it goes directly to the individual. This one goes to Terence. Terence, does this mean wellness focus on senior development?
I think we need to start thinking about wellness as being applicable to life in general. Okay, we've identified aging populations as one of the trends and catering to aging populations. But really, wellness is permeating all levels of architecture, all levels of development, not just the senior sector. Okay, so we're seeing more and more of the wellness awareness. Okay, among designers, among the people who buy, but among people who invest as well. Okay, but no, it's not just devoted to the seniors.
Thank you. Dr. Pansa, what do you think is wellness? Because you are also focusing a lot on seniors. So do you think the trend is just on seniors, or do you look at basically the demographic is much wider?
That is the thing that we have to take care, because we have more and more senior live in this world. But I agree with Chris and Terence that we have to live with the young generation too. So the mixed-use project is the best way to create the healthy environment for the wellness living together. I think in the old, we live in a big family, then we live in a separate family. But the new normal, maybe we have to return back to live in a little bit big family, in a same compartment, not very big mixed use. Someone want to live there, live here, but we can connect each other in the environment that go along well with nature.
Thank you, thank you. Well, I would like to take another question here. This one goes to David. David, on an average, how much more cost per square meter to set up a wellness department?
So I don't think there is an exact number to put into, incorporating wellness aspects to property development. But I think it's more about balancing the higher costs. Obviously, typically it will cost higher to develop, wellness real estate in terms of, the aesthetics of it. And obviously natural lighting will involve a lot of glass and all these little details. And so there isn't a number, but I think it is important to think about how you balance the higher costs and what the benefits financially or otherwise comes from incorporating wellness aspects to your designs.
I think so. Chris and Terence, maybe you guys got a better feel of how much per square meter, because if you would ask me to put in a wellness environment, I can tell you for per hotel room, maybe it will take you between a 90 to 130 USD per square meter. But maybe in terms of totality, a wellness property, maybe either one of you could give a little bit more insight.
Well, I think if we look at how the trends moved for the green movement on the sustainability for green marks, say in Singapore, when the QSs are looking at the projects, if you're going for a high premium green mark, platinum, etc., you're probably looking at 10, and Terence can correct me if I'm wrong, but 10 to 15% extra over on your square meterage, but you're gaining. These days, all the developers recognize the importance of having such green mark registrations, et cetera, increase in rental values. As David was saying, for the premiums in Bangkok, the Gaeson is the most expensive property to be renting now. And the overall cost in terms of that is not so great. Particularly when we're looking at wellness, it's the design. And the design itself doesn't cost more. It's just thinking up front that this is the goal of development. If we look at reducing the reliance on high energy systems, et cetera, like the air conditioning, if we're able to create flexible space and we're able to bring in light and air so people can adjust and change their environments, that creates the whole foundations for the wellness.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you. I got a personal WhatsApp coming in from one of our guests here asking this question. Basically, I would think it goes more relevant to Tan Wan or Wayne. When you do your funding, would you be looking only at greenfield or brownfield? And maybe you could advise us the types of funding, whether it's more for medical, hospital, or will it be more for a property?
Okay, I'll just give a brief answer to that. In terms of going for STOs or crowdfunding, because these are relatively new types of funding, it will be very difficult to attract investors to a greenfield or brownfield. Generally, they work for properties that are existing. For example, owners who wants to renovate, revitalize their existing property, modernize it. Those would be best, partially because there is an existence of the property itself. Okay, maybe in the future, from 10 years from now, as people get more used to it, you might start moving into a greenfield, brownfield type of property.
Okay.
Nature of property, it's fixed to any particular type.
Okay. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, and
yeah, okay. Yeah, you can.
Yeah. It's not fixed to any particular type of usage of the property. But what we're seeing a lot are hotels, obviously, and rental space. There are developers of condominiums who are looking into this as a means of getting retail buyers to pool their funds, almost like a timeshare type of purchase of individual condominium units, and that's also possible.
So his next question to you also is, what kind of interest rate is crowdfunding charging on an average?
As on our platform is about 6 to 15%. Yeah, it's because of we have to balance with the list itself with the yield or return to the investors. Yeah.
Oh, okay, 6 to 15%. Okay, I hope that would answer him. Okay. Maybe we could take about another 2 more questions before we would. Any takeaway message or question within the panelists or speakers, please? Yeah, that would be interesting.
Well, I've got a question for Terrence. Now, in terms of, because I know from the office that he's actually very skilled at the hospitals and medical projects. Do you see a coming together on these different arms of maybe the hospitality sector, the medical sector, developing within themselves a new wellness kind of market?
I think within Singapore, we have a ways to go. Okay, we're starting to see the incipient awareness of the importance of wellness and weaving it into a development. I think we are a couple of steps away. There's definitely potential for that, and I think there's more and more awareness that the more multifaceted a development can be, the better it is for the outcome. But because typically my background has been a lot in healthcare and a really heavy hard-hitting healthcare, hospitals, equipment and something. So those have a myriad of factors already. To build in wellness architecture into that, I think is an additional step. It would take a bit of forward thinking on part of the clients and part of the people developing things like that, but there's definitely potential. And I think all signs point in that direction. Okay, so I don't think it's going to be an easy journey, but yeah, I think we're headed in that direction.
Thanks, Chris. Any other questions between speakers, please?
Yeah, may I ask Chris? We are talking about the mixed use, and then when we talk about wellness, sometimes we have to think that people may love what we call pet wellness, that are coming very fast in the a little bit young generation, middle generation, and older generation. Because the young generation now sometimes they live by their own, they did not have a partner, they have nothing. So they take to catering them, and the people when they get older, their offspring gone already. So they need pets. So sometimes they cannot live in a high-rise condominium, they cannot live in something like that, but they still need to take care of pets. Like me, I have to live in a separate housing because I have to take care of them. So how can we incorporate that? Because that also may be the future trend also.
I totally agree, Pat. Yes. Chris, that question is to you. You want to answer, Dr. Pan?
I don't know. Oh, yeah, I think you said Terrence and Chris. I don't want to speak all the time. I can give to Terrence.
Happy to let you answer, Chris. I spoke a lot just now.
We've got, there's, you know, in Bangkok and in other developments in Singapore and stuff, sometimes they actually make it so it's a pet-free zone. So I don't know. But I think, you know, there's been interesting stuff on the televisions the other day in the IT sector about the usefulness in elderly care of pets and how they support for dementia, etc. But of course, pets aren't allowed usually in the hospitals or the dementia centers. So they've been developing small robotic creatures that mimic or act like a comforting creature for them. And it's been proven that it actually helps them. So maybe instead of we'll be having robotic pets and things.
I do see a pet division in a mixed-use development or a pet center would be very useful for senior. It basically keeps them active, I would think. And staying together with your loved ones, you know, setting up a mixed use that is not just for senior, but also for a family. I think that's very, very important. That's always been in our plan. Now, well, let's go for another 5 minutes, but before we would like to take that off, please put in your questions, and we're going to take a few seconds here. We're going to do a pod questionnaire. So to all participants, if you could, kindly answer the questions that is going to come up on screen in a short while we'll still carry on discussing between the speakers. Okay, speakers, any questions for each and any one of us?
I actually have one for Dr. Pansak. So we discussed a lot about how wellness for the elderly and how a lot of projects are catering really to the elderly, and that's really important for them. But I was wondering how important is it to actually carry this on from a younger age. So if we have projects that are also catering to the younger people, because otherwise the only way for the younger people to access all these facilities would have to be to go to, you know, the outskirts or the resorts, but there isn't a lot of facilities in the city. So that's basically my question.
That is a very nice question. I always talk that anti-aging start when you are young. Living well start when you are young, not take care when you are old. So how can we make the young generation living well? That is the question that we may have to talk, because that's a future trend too. Because we have few young generation, and then if we not take care of them very well, in the future, they may have another problem rising. So if you ask me, in general, in the medical wellness, we take care for like the genetic determinant for the young generation, what they should have to eat, what they have to exercise, how anything like that. And then we also talk about how they can connection with their parents and then everyone. And then because I also listen to Terrence, and he talk about how to make the design, something like that. And he talk about the mental wellness. Nowadays, sometimes the mental wellness of the young generation is not so well because the environment is not creative. So we have to create the environment for the young generation that they can explore about the nature, can explore about the living well together. They can socially, because now they social to the internet, social to the media, but they cannot have a personal contact. So in the environment that we are going to create later, we may need time for them to have a personal contact. That is the crucial point, because personal contact make the problem less and make negotiable good. So that is the art of living.
Okay, one last question I have. Basically, this is for Wayne and Tanwa, is for fund investment here. What is the appetite that your establishment do or your connection do in terms of investment? Because we do have people in our projects calling into our companies, project scale like up to 20 million, up to 50 million. And there's also one that is going at about 10 million USD. What is your appetite of crowdfunding, or what's the appetite of the real remix would be able to do funding of this level?
Okay. So for this level, I think we need to go into all the sizing or the details of the project, and lastly, where is the location and the kind of investment. That is very first step that we're going to, and after that we also need some financial things, right? That inform about the companies or the historical. It depends on another thing that come is about the equity or the debt form of fundraising. That is one with initial consideration of fundraising. Yeah, the value is depend. Maybe 10 million is maybe just we can mix up all several kind of tools, right? Not just really the crowdfunding. We also need the traditional debts also to mix up, something like that.
Okay.
I think traditionally, if you talk about those, it really depends, but if you're looking at something below 10 million to be raised by STO, I think that's probably the sweet spot at this time, because the higher you go, the longer period that you need to have the underwriting, right, to people to uptake it. Keep in mind that it's not right now, it's very difficult to have an entire project funded just by tokenizations. So it is a part of funding tools. So if you're looking at like 20%, max 30% of your project being funded by this alternative. Yeah.
Good, thank you. As you can see, the questionnaire that we put up, 22% of our guests here are looking for investments in their properties, and majority of them are looking at business opportunities. So to all and each and every one of the speakers, I personally thank you for your time, for contribute and giving us an insight of where wellness and lifestyle is and what property investment is looking ahead in today's pandemic. But my take-home message to each and everyone is stay safe and be strong, and I believe there's always opportunity out there. So before we call it a day, I would like to make sure that everybody scan through the WhatsApp, put through the WhatsApp, participate in WhatsApp, because each and every one of us will be there, will be able to be at ongoing. We will be sending you a recording. As I said, we are live. So we will broadcast and we will give you all our questions that are not answered. So maybe a very quick round of thank you from all speakers, and thank you to all participants. And we would like to basically welcome you back in our next webinar, which will be talking about branding, which is the most important thing about branding. When you have a property, you're looking at what you're going to do in a business. Branding is the core, more important. So first and foremost, thank you, Swan and Karen, for all your time. Chris and Terence, for your participation, giving us so much rich information on wellness, properties, and architecture. Take-home message from each of you, short and sharp, if you don't mind, please, before we go on to the rest of the speakers.
Go for it, Terence.
Me? I start first?
Yes.
Well, thanks everyone for attending today. Just hope that you found it useful, and if you can, please do stay in touch. All right. Thanks very much. Stay safe.
Chris?
I hope, as Terence says, it's been informative. We're here if anybody wants to reach out to us in WhatsApp or through the other contacts. We're all collaborative, working, of course, with Anthony and AJT and things specifically on the needs for wellness. So it's an exciting market, and now's the time to be coming into that market and developing that market, I think. And everybody be safe.
Thank you, Chris. Dr. Pansa, your good advice on healthcare.
I think everything starts from our mind. So you want to have a good wellness in yourself and surrounding. First, think well. Think well, and today we learning well, teaching well. Later on, we have to working well and loving well. So everything, think on the wellness side, not think on the illness side. And then everyone will be well.
I totally agree. Thank you so much. David, your call, your take home.
All right. I think in every crisis, there is an opportunity. And obviously, wellness is among one of the top opportunities out there. And I think our discussion today is, and all the previous discussions that you've had, Anthony, is very helpful to everyone. And thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Kun Tan Wan, your take home. Everybody's looking on you. Bring the money.
I think just for myself and Wade, as I'm a lawyer and we are seeing a lot of businesses struggle, restructuring their businesses, people looking for funding. In the context of this crisis, I think there are opportunities. Businesses are looking to streamline, and with new technologies, there are untapped markets in terms of trying to raise funds. As investors, the chase for return has become much more difficult. And if we can bridge the gap, I think those are things we support.
Hello?
Oh, I think the connection's gone.
We lost you?
Yeah, I think my internet's trying to kick me out.
Hey, thank you. Wayne, your last good wishes.
Okay. I think for this circumstance, then everyone just be safe, right, in terms of healthy, and also get financial wellness also. Yeah, just think of the way they do the business also. Just be conservative and just go step by step. They just foresee. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all speakers. Thank you all attendees and guests of AJT webinar, Wellness and Lifestyle. We thank you and we hope to see you very soon in the coming week on the 14th about branding in wellness. So thank you so much. Once, good health, stay well, and have a good day. Good evening. Bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye. Thank you.